Alright, what's going on guys? Using Actionz here and welcome back to another Outlast Trials video. Now today we are going to be discussing some of the documents and the lore in the game. I would have liked to got to this a lot sooner, but I just haven't had the time. But today we're going to be checking out some of the stuff, going through some of the documents, discussing everything, breaking them down a little bit. You know what we do around here. And it should be very interesting and a lot of fun. So with that being said, sit back, get a snack, get a drink, and let's jump into some Outlast Trials lore. This email appears to contain a transcribed internal memo from the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, dated January 12, 1953. The memo documents an interview between Jameson Lawler, a CIA representative, and Hendrik Joliet Easterman, identified as a civilian. The interview took place in Chicago, Illinois, and the transcription includes minutes 33 to 36 of the conversation. Lawler begins by referencing an event where Easterman was present, specifically mentioning a speech by someone named Mr. Dulles at Princeton. Lawler questions Easterman about his attendance, to which Easterman responds with uncertainty about the tone of the inquiry, but does confirm being present. Lawler emphasizes the pervasive influence of brainwashing in the public consciousness, citing a front-page story from the previous year involving 21 American prisoners of war who chose to remain in communist China. Easterman acknowledges his awareness of the news coverage. Lawler then directs the conversation towards a central question: why in the name of God would anybody given the choice become a communist? The edited nature of the document suggests a focus on clarity, possibly indicating the omission of irrelevant or sensitive information. This snippet of the memo raises questions about the context and purpose of the interview. The reference to brainwashing and the choice to embrace communism suggests a Cold War-era concern about ideological influence and defection. The involvement of the CIA implies a connection to intelligence and security matters, highlighting the agency's interest in understanding the motivations behind individuals aligning with ideologies perceived as a threat to the United States. The mention of Murkoff Corp and a procurement date in 1954 may indicate a broader investigation or project involving the CIA and external entities, but further details are not provided in the provided excerpt. This email, originating from the CIA archives and dated January 13, 1953, consists of a transcribed internal memo documenting an interview between Jameson Lawler of the CIA and Hendrik Joliet Easterman, identified as a civilian. The interview occurred on January 12, 1953 in Chicago, Illinois. The provided transcription covers minutes 36 to 39 of the conversation and is marked as edited for clarity. Easterman initiates the dialogue by referencing thought reform, to which Lawler responds by emphasizing his focus on brainwashing. Easterman acknowledges Lawler's familiarity with his work, expressing a need for forgiveness due to his reliance on assumptions related to the German psyche in the period leading up to 1933. There is mention of red material in this context. Lawler dismisses the idea, clarifying that their working assumption aligns with Easterman's insights into the commonality of the notion of belief between communism and National Socialism. He references Easterman's discussions on the subtler menace and the upstream movement. Easterman then expands on this by mentioning the political truth infiltrating culture: sex, advertising, music, consumption, and drugs. Lawler responds with a concise statement: everything is a language. This implies a recognition of the pervasive influence of ideology and political truths on various aspects of society, suggesting a sophisticated understanding of the interconnected nature of belief systems and their expression through cultural elements. The snippet provides insight into the depth of the conversation, indicating a discussion about the parallels between communism and National Socialism, and their infiltration into various facets of society. The references to red material and the German psyche suggest a historical and psychological context, underscoring the complex nature of the topics under consideration. The mention of Murkoff Corp and a procurement date in 1954 is present but lacks specific details about its relevance to the conversation. This email, dated January 14, 1953, and sourced from the CIA archives, contains a transcribed internal memo documenting an interview between Jameson Lawler of the CIA and Hendrik Joliet Easterman, identified as a civilian. The interview took place on January 12, 1953 in Chicago, Illinois, and the transcription covers minutes 39 to 41 of their conversation. The document is marked as edited for clarity. The conversation begins with a philosophical statement from Lawler, asserting that everything is a language language. Easterman concurs with this statement, responding with agreement, emphasizing the universal nature of communication and interpretation.
However, the tone shifts dramatically when Lawler brings up a sensitive topic, stating, "Your brother killed himself." This disclosure is met with several moments of silence, and Lawler continues noting that Easterman's brother was a lieutenant who died in Korea.
The exchange becomes tense as Lawler employs a conversational style that Easterman characterizes as sounding like questions, but not necessarily being questions. Lawler, in turn, asserts that he only speaks the truth. Easterman challenges the certainty of the circumstances surrounding his brother's death, expressing skepticism about the forensic investigation and the conclusion that it was a suicide. Lawler acknowledges the ambiguity of war and the strange occurrences within it. The dialogue takes an unexpected turn when Lawler presents an opportunity for Easterman to investigate what happened in Korea. He discloses that the CIA is holding Korean People's Army, KPA, brainwashing subjects in Hong Kong, and expresses the need for someone with Easterman's qualifications to conduct an investigation. This portion of the memo introduces a personal and emotional dimension to the conversation, delving into Easterman's family history and the mysterious circumstances surrounding his brother's death. The revelation of an opportunity for Easterman to investigate brainwashing subjects adds a layer of intrigue, suggesting a connection between personal history and potential intelligence operations. The mention of Murkoff Corp and the procurement date of 1954 in this excerpt remains unexplained, leaving room for further details to contextualize its relevance. This document, dated February 9, 1953, is a copy of a private correspondence from Dr. Hendrik Joliet Easterman. The letter is addressed to someone named Irene and contains personal reflections and information related to Easterman's activities in Hong Kong. Easterman begins with a request for the recipient, presumably Irene, to burn the letter after reading it. This suggests a level of confidentiality or sensitivity in the content that Easterman wishes to maintain. He provides a glimpse into the weather conditions in Hong Kong, describing it as surprisingly mild but expressing concern about the lack of a scarf and the perceived vulnerability of the town to earthquakes. This introduces a personal and atmospheric dimension to the letter. Despite Easterman's reservations about the environment, he expresses confidence in the research facilities, attributing their quality to the reputation of the greatest army on Earth. He notes that his initial interviews have been illuminating, particularly in the context of his investigation into the circumstances surrounding Stanley's apparent suicide. Easterman mentions interviewing veterans and a Lutheran minister, all of whom were war prisoners of the Korean People's Army. He highlights the absence of concrete evidence for specific psychological programming, but emphasizes the impressive degree of trauma experienced by these individuals. The letter takes a personal turn as Easterman mentions the spiciness of the local food and expresses a sense of longing, stating that he misses Irene terribly. This personal touch adds a human element to the document, revealing the emotional toll of Easterman's work. There is also a hint of concern as Easterman references Irene's dislike for him repeating himself and urges her to burn the letter after reading, reinforcing the need for secrecy. The handwritten signature at the end adds a personal touch and authenticity to the letter. Overall, the document provides a snapshot of Easterman's experiences and emotions during his research in Hong Kong, blending professional observations with personal reflections and concerns. The mention of Stanley's suicide and the investigation into psychological programming adds an intriguing layer of mystery and intrigue to the narrative. Dated April 19, 1954, this document is a copy of correspondence between Olivier W. Baranczyk, Assistant Director of Behavioral Medicine at the Murkoff Corpince's Mount Massive Hospital, and H.J. Easterman. The header information indicates that it is designated for interorganizational letters only. Baranczyk initiates the communication by introducing himself to Dr. Easterman, acknowledging the familiarity with the Murkoff Corporation, and highlighting his role as Assistant Director of Behavioral Medicine. He references Easterman's findings in Hong Kong, emphasizing discretion, and reveals that Jameson Lawler, a mutual friend, has shared this information with him. Notably, Baranczyk suggests that Easterman's research aligns with dream therapy work conducted at the labs in Los Alamos. The tone of the letter takes a notable shift as Baranczyk informs Easterman about the agency's cooperation in bringing him to Los Alamos to meet their team of researchers. He mentions that travel documents and tickets can be found in Easterman's bedside table, implying a level of coordination or control over Easterman's Easterman's movements. A sense of urgency is introduced as Baranczyk strongly recommends Easterman's acceptance of the invitation. The letter implies that Easterman's knowledge of sensitive national security issues, even without active participation, could pose a security risk that may require a form of enforceable silence. This raises questions about the nature of Easterman's involvement in activities related to national security. To further entice Easterman's cooperation, Baranczyk emphasizes the importance and inspiration of the research at Los Alamos, contrasting it with the methodologies of enemies in the communist world. He appeals to Easterman's belief in miracles, suggesting that the research at Los Alamos goes beyond the approaches employed by adversaries. The letter provides a glimpse into a complex web of relationships involving Murkoff Corp, national security, and Easterman's expertise. The mention of dream therapy, national security issues, and the invitation to Los Alamos creates an intriguing backdrop, hinting at a convergence of scientific research and intelligence activities. Dated May 1, 1954, this document is a copy of a private journal entry written by Dr. Hendrik Joliet Easterman. The header indicates that it is categorized under personnel surveillance within Murkoff Corp. Easterman begins his journal entry by describing a Saturday where he peruses a used bookshop in Santa Fe. He discovers a book of monster stories collected from Weird Tales magazine, noting that one of the stories was a favorite of his as a child. However, he critiques the story as feeble pulp, attributing it to a writer who seems simultaneously terrified and aroused by atavistic modes of worship. The entry takes a more introspective turn as Easterman reflects on the opening paragraph of the story, finding it oddly applicable to his experiences at Los Alamos. The quoted passage suggests the mercy in the human mind's inability to correlate all its contents, emphasizing the placid island of ignorance in the face of vast, incomprehensible knowledge. Easterman predicts that the piecing together of dissociated knowledge could lead to terrifying vistas of reality, potentially causing madness or a retreat into a new dark age. The mention of Los Alamos adds a layer of complexity to the journal entry, hinting at the nature of Easterman's work and the potential unsettling discoveries he might be making. The juxtaposition of the monster stories and the ominous quote suggests a connection between Easterman's intellectual pursuits and the foreboding atmosphere of his research environment. The entry concludes with a simple statement: "It is May Day, workers of the world unite." This phrase, associated with labor movements and socialist ideologies, may indicate Easterman's awareness of the broader socio-political context. Its inclusion at the end of the entry leaves room for interpretation regarding Easterman's mindset and perhaps his views on the societal implications of the knowledge he is encountering. Overall, the journal entry provides a glimpse into Easterman's intellectual reflections, blending elements of literature, existential musings, and the enigmatic nature of his work at Los Alamos within the context of Murkoff Corp's personnel surveillance. Dated May 4, 1954, this document is a copy of a private journal entry by Dr. Hendrik Joliet Easterman, categorized under personnel surveillance within Murkoff Corp. Easterman begins by noting a warning against discussing politics with someone identified as Dr. Wernicke, with the caution suggesting a willingness to overlook Wernicke's past for the sake of the future. The cryptic nature of this warning raises questions about Wernicke's background and the potential sensitivity of political discussions within the context of their work. Easterman expresses frustration with Olivier Baranczyk, noting the challenges posed by foreign names. Baranczyk apparently believes that Easterman's research on brainwashing and ideological revision should align with Wernicke's work, involving microwave signals and guided visual stimulation. Easterman, however, dismissively characterizes Wernicke as a sideshow mesmerist, indicating a lack of respect or credibility assigned to Wernicke's endeavors. The journal entry reveals Easterman's attempts to seek clarity on Wernicke's experiments, but these efforts are thwarted as conversations consistently veer toward the psychotherapeutic implications of Germanic folklore and, notably, the inherently doomed nature of all heterosexual relationships. This diversion suggests a quirk in Wernicke's focus and interests, raising questions about the relevance of such discussions within the research context. Easterman discloses experiencing strange dreams since his arrival, hinting at a potential psychological impact or influence within the research environment. He describes Wernicke as a vital and hands handsome man, adding a personal element to the entry. Easterman's reaching out to Murkoff Human Resources to arrange Irene's presence indicates a desire for companionship and concentration, suggesting a need for emotional support in the midst of his challenging work. The journal entry paints a picture of complex interpersonal dynamics within the Murkoff Corp, with hints of political sensitivity, skepticism toward colleagues, and a blend of professional and personal challenges impacting Easterman's experience at the research facility. The emphasis on names, divergent research interests, and personal dreams adds layers of intrigue to the narrative.
Alright guys, and that is going to wrap it up for some of the Outlast Trials documents today. Of course, this is only the first part. If you do want me to get the second part out pretty quick, you guys know what to do. Make sure you just like the video up, leave me a comment, and let me know what you're thinking about this Outlast Trials lore so far. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy the video, make sure to like button. If you guys are new to my channel, make sure you subscribe. And I will talk to you guys in the next video.